we were talking earlier about the 2016 election, and I've listened to Eric Weinstein talk about this a little bit. So the term that he uses, and I think is good to know for when we were talking about people not being truthful about what they think on a given topic, like particularly in the polls. The term is helpful to know. It's called preference falsification. So that's when you're outwardly saying something and not actually adhering to that yourself. And I think that happens a lot nowadays, where people want to appear a certain way, and in reality, behind closed doors, when push comes to shove, actually they think something else.
Yeah, or you're doing some kind of self-reported study,
Yeah.
and maybe you're answering how you see yourself or how you want to be.
How you want to see yourself versus how you actually
and this,
are. Yeah.
We could get into,
Sure.
I won't go into it today, but you can get into territory with like personality tests when you have self-reported things. I really think that a lot of times people go into these personality tests and it's unclear to me how often the personality test reflects their true personality versus
how they want to be perceived.
Versus how they see themselves or how they want to be, how they want to see themselves. And that's how they answer the questions. I have never felt confident in my own ability to go through a personality test. They ask you these situations, what would you do in this? Every time I look at it and I just think, well, this is what I think would be the best thing to do. That's not the same thing as this is what I would do in that situation. That's really not the same thing.
You know what this makes me think of? And this is probably gonna date me. There's a teen dystopian series. I don't remember the series name, but the first book is Divergent. And in the book series, people from a number of different, we'll say, proclivities take a test, and most of the people are not conscious when they're taking the test, and they're run through simulations to see how they react. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there are a subsect of people who are conscious under the test, and as a result, they're able to kind of doctor the test in different ways. And I think that oftentimes applies to the personality test. Like there's a level of consciousness where if you understand what the question is really asking, you're understanding the underlying question behind what is just simply on the page, then you could go through some preference falsification where, oh, now I want to appear this way. Now, I guess it's not preference falsification, that's personality falsification.
I think that's an issue with personality tests, and I could go off about personality tests on its whole own thing, and I won't do that, but I think it's just another example of how you're responding to questions, survey questions. I think sometimes people can say, well, I took this test, I'm an INTJ, like, that's what the test said, this is science, like, okay, but it's a self-reported test, like, there's subjectivity in there, for sure. Like, this is not solid science. A lot of what we've been talking about here is, like, we've been talking about a lot of misleading type of statistics or polls or whatever, based on, people responding to a survey or that kind of thing. I guess I'll just say it's not only those types of, like, survey gathered data, public opinion type data that can be misleading. I mean, you can take, like, solid data and mislead with that, depending on what samples you choose, what your population is. Are you factoring in all the variables that matter, right? You were talking about the thing with prostate cancer. Like, it's not just self-reported survey type studies that can be misleading or dangerous. Like, statistics as a whole can be. Even if you get something that seems on the surface like, well, how could you be misleading in this? It's just data. This many people had this over this, and it's like, okay, how many people were checked? What were the demographics of the type of people that checked? Like, there's still a lot of ways that those seemingly cut and dry pieces of statistics can be missing information that is critical.
And all of that is assuming that you aren't receiving false flags in the data set.
Yep.
Due to preference falsification, due to people being able to see through like a previously thought to be double-blind study,